Hello and welcome to the Valley. Today I am your host, Janet Michael. It is Extension Office Friday. I am back on the Zooms with Elizabeth Baldwin. She, of course, is the Page County Extension agent, though, and I'll say this for Cynthia Fairbanks, who's joining us as well in Warren County. They serve all 5 of our surrounding areas. That's a very important piece of information to know when we start talking about a workshop that they are having later. What we're talking about today isn't specific to Page County or to Warren County, but Elizabeth, thank you for taking some time to meet up on the Zooms and talk about herd health today.
Thank you for having us, Janet. We're excited to share a little bit about herd health for specifically some sheep and goat producers.
Cynthia, I was more than a little happy to see your face on the Zooms today because I know your first appearance on the show was a literal trial by fire. So I'm glad that you're still here and you seem to really be enjoying this position.
Yes, it's been about 6 months, so I'm really happy to be here, and I've learned a lot the last 6 months, so good to see you again, and thank you for having me.
So, Elizabeth, we're going to talk about herd health, primarily sheep and goats. I am not that familiar with what farming actually looks like in Page County in particular. I can rattle off a list of a dozen farms in Frederick County, probably a dozen to a half a dozen in Clark County. Is farming even a thing in Page County?
It is. We have lots of farms in Page County, maybe even more than, I don't know numbers wise, but maybe more than Frederick and Warren in some cases. The whole county is pretty rural, and we have lots of different types of farms in our county. We've got lots of livestock operations, poultry and cattle, and of course goats and sheep. And then we've got some crop farmers as well, growing some commodity crops, and we've got a few specialty things, a few pumpkin patches and Christmas tree farm, and so we've got a lot of different farms here to offer.
I feel like if someone is interested at all in farming and growing things might not be their jam, sheep and goats are probably a really good entry level into figuring out what their path forward might be.
Yes, that's a great point. We've seen a little bit of growth within sheep and goat producers, more producers, and a lot of those are people who are new to farming altogether and are using that as a gateway to get into farming or homesteading, to have some goats or some sheep. I guess they're a little bit smaller. People are more comfortable maybe working with them as opposed to something like a cow that's a little larger, maybe more intimidating for folks who don't have livestock or animal experience. So yeah, we are seeing lots of folks get into farming using those small ruminants, which are another way to say sheep and goats.
Cynthia, what have you found as you've been traveling around Warren County and meeting some of the different people that you're serving? What does it look like in Warren County?
I was hired in as an animal science agent, but I feel like a lot of my questions are not animal based. But I will say I get a lot of backyard poultry questions, sheep and goats, obviously, beef cattle, and forage questions has really been a big one. And that's something that I'm definitely still learning about. But I've been surprised by the diversity of questions relating to people's lawns and bugs and plants and stuff, which is definitely not my niche, but I'm definitely learning more about it.
When I was younger, way younger, my grandfather had a very small farm and he had cattle. I went with him to the livestock sale. We would have to load those cattle up the ramp and into the truck, and then off we'd go. That was one of the experiences I remember when I was in, I think, middle school. But never sheep, never goats. But I talk to a lot of people that have those now for the wool and for the milk, and they can produce a product from those types of animals. Do you feel like, Cynthia, that's why people like to give them a shot to try doing those first?
Yeah, I think that, and they're a little bit cheaper to obtain for maybe farmers that are just trying to get into agriculture and wanting to give farming a try. They're a little bit cheaper to get into. They're obviously a lot easier to work with and smaller, so they're easier to touch on and not have to worry about a big animal. And obviously, fencing can be a little bit of an issue with them since they do like to escape, but they're very diverse eaters. So pretty much anything you put them on, they're going to enjoy.
I've often joked that I need to find someone who has goats so that I can stop listening to my husband complain about mowing the yard.
Yep.
I need to rent your goats for an afternoon so that he doesn't
Yes.
have to argue and whine about that anymore.
Yep.
But Elizabeth, it's not as easy as me deciding that I'm going to get a couple of goats and I'm going to put them in my backyard. There are a ton of things. They do require care. Cynthia touches on fencing. There are some things that go into having these types of animals.
Yes, and that would be my number one tip for anybody interested in getting any type of animal or sheep or goats specifically is to find out. You can call the extension office or do some research online and find out what things that you need and maybe get them in place before you get the animals. So making sure you have enough space, enough acreage or pasture for the number that you'd like to get. Make sure that you've got fences in place, maybe a small shelter, windbreak so they can get out of the wet weather. Sheep and goats both do okay in the cold weather, but they don't like to be wet. And so we'd like them to have shelter, make sure that we've got access or have found out where to buy some hay or feed if we need to do that. And so learning some of these things beforehand can be helpful. I always get calls, and I'm sure Cynthia does too. And we love these calls, but are folks who call and are like, I bought these animals and now I'm not sure what to do with them or where to put them. We're always happy to answer and help, but I always think to myself, if you'd called me just a couple weeks ago before you went to the sale and got these, that would have been even better. So do your homework a little bit before you decide to go to the sale and see those cute goats and decide they need a place in your yard. Maybe do a little bit of research first to find out all you can about them.
That's one of the downsides is that baby goats are so cute that it is very hard to look at them and think, how much trouble could they be? They can
Yes.
be a lot of trouble.
They can be. So, yeah, the more that you can get prepared for that and have a good place, because they do like to get out, like Cynthia said, and they like to eat lots of things. So, they may come and nibble on your nice landscaping or your flower beds and things like that if you don't have a secure place for them.
Are sheep any easier?
It depends on who you ask, Janet. There's some people. It depends, I'll say. I think sheep are not as difficult to keep in. Some people might argue, but goats are really good climbers, so they can climb over fences, things like that. Sometimes, depending on the breed, some goats can be a little hardier than some sheep, but in general, there's some similarities, but quite a bit of differences. So I'll say sheep are easier maybe to keep inside a fence. You don't have to have such robust fence. You still need a good fence, but goats, if there's something close by, a tree or something, they can kind of climb up, they can hop over the fence or get under. They're looking to travel if they can.
Cynthia, I know this is not a good comparison at all, but it is the only comparison that I have personal knowledge of. So I got dogs. I got puppies during the pandemic, had never had dogs in my life. So I feel like this puts me in a similar category to people who maybe have moved out from Northern Virginia. They find a little 3-acre plot in Warren County or in Page, Clark, wherever, and they think, okay, so my entry is going to be chickens. And let's be honest, chickens are fairly easy. I mean, on the grand scale of everything, you can throw 3 or 4 of them in the backyard. Fencing is fairly simple. Feeding them is somewhat easy. I know Elizabeth and I have had conversations about bird flu in the past, so I'm not saying that it's foolproof, but I feel like then they get them and they're like me. I had no idea about vet bills. I had no idea about vaccines. I had no idea about foods they shouldn't eat or things we shouldn't drop on the floor. Do you feel like there's some of that education that maybe should be happening before they show up in the backyards of some of these first time farmers?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that us at the Extension office can also help with if there are questions about materials that need to be had prior to getting them. And something that we'll touch on soon, especially with the sheep and goats, is a workshop that we're doing next month for sheep and goat producers and now recently camelids too. So if you've got your alpacas and your llamas, we're doing a FAMACHA workshop, which is really just tailored towards internal parasite management for your sheep and goats. So this is something for first-time sheep and goat owners and you're worried about parasite management. This is going to give you all the tips and tricks to be able to keep your animals healthy and know what to look for to keep them healthy.
Let's take a break. When we come back, let's get in the weeds on the workshop, what it is, how it works, who should come. And it's interesting that you also bring up llamas and alpacas because we're seeing a lot of those now in our area as well. So I think it's great that you have that option for them as well. Can we talk about details for this workshop in the next segment?
Absolutely.
We're on the Zooms for Extension Office Friday. Elizabeth Baldwin is joining us. She is the Page County Extension agent. Cynthia Fairbanks is on the Zooms with us as well. She represents Warren County, though. Again, I'll say they represent all 5 of our surrounding counties. We're going to learn about the FAMACHA workshop when we come back in just a couple of minutes.
This Tuesday, April Davis will change the world. She doesn't know that yet. All she knows is that she went to justserve.org and volunteered an hour of her time. Browsing through dozens of service opportunities in her community, April decided to spend her Tuesday evening serving dinner to mothers and their children at a transitional house. She doesn't know she'll be serving a particular mother and daughter who will be spending their first night in this home. April doesn't know that the hot meal she'll serve is the first this mother and daughter will have had in a week, or that the simple smile she'll offer as she serves them will help them realize that things are going to be all right. Which is why this Tuesday, April Davis will change the world. See the difference you can make. Sign up for service opportunities in your community. Visit justserve.org.
Welcome back to the Valley. Today, I am your host, Janet Michael. It is Extension Office Friday. We are on the Zooms with Elizabeth Baldwin from Page County and Cynthia Fairbanks from Warren County. We're talking about herd health, herd specifically for sheep and goats, though, as we mentioned a little bit before we went to break, llamas and alpacas. They are so intriguing to me. I have got to find an alpaca farm in this area that will let me come and do a radio show so that I can talk to an alpaca on the air. So I'm going to lean on you ladies to try and hopefully point me in the right direction for one of those. But when we went to break, Cynthia, we were talking a little bit about this FAMACHA workshop that you have. And I did very little Googling before we jumped on the Zoom and saw that these are workshops that happen across the country. This isn't something unique to the Shenandoah Valley. What does FAMACHA stand for exactly?
It stands for Faffa Malan chart. It was developed in South Africa in the early 1990s by Dr. Faffa Malan. It was developed because a lot of producers in Africa were deworming all of their goats when they noticed signs of internal parasites in their animals. And this was creating dewormer resistance, and it was extremely costly for the producers at the time. And so he developed this chart, which really analyzes the anemia level in our sheep and goats, and then most recently camelids as well, ranging from 1 to 5, which shows that packed cell volume or that hematocrit level, which is our red blood cells in the blood. You kind of pull down the eye of the animal to express that mucous membrane and pull that scorecard up, and you compare that color to the color of their mucous membrane, and it gives you a good visualization on whether you should be deworming your animal or not. This was developed to save producers money, but also to prevent resistance because this was tailored towards the barber poleworm, and the barber poleworm is a very hard bugger to get rid of. So if you deworm all of your goats without need, then you can create resistant worms as well. So it's very hard to get rid of them.
Elizabeth, are parasites really a problem here in the Shenandoah Valley? What kind of parasites are we talking about exactly?
Yes. So there's lots of different parasites out there. For this workshop, we're specifically talking about those internal ones. Like Cynthia mentioned, the barber pole worm is kind of the biggie. And so they're a problem, especially with sheep and goats. They seem to be a little less resistant to those than some of our larger animals like cattle or things like that. Once they get these internal parasites, they maybe will have some health problems because of it. And so we have lots of worms out there that are on pasture. And so as our goats and sheep graze, they can be picking up the eggs, and then those develop in their belly and their intestinal system and can cause some major economic loss and also health problems in our sheep and goats. These can be a problem too, like Cynthia mentioned about resistance. And so lots of folks think, I'll just get a dewormer for my sheep or goats. And unfortunately, we don't have but just a handful of ones that are out there. Less than that for our goats. There's not as many that are FDA approved. And unfortunately, we've not come out with a new product since about 1980. That's been a few years ago now, unfortunately. And so we're really working hard to be able to make sure that these medicines, these anthelmintics or dewormers, continue to be useful. And we're seeing more resistance in our parasite populations. And so with this FAMACHA class and using FAMACHA can help you be a little bit more selective and maybe hopefully have these products being around for a long time to allow us to keep using them as a tool as well.
When I did the initial introduction, I said that we were going to talk about herd health. So, one of my questions is if you just have one goat or one sheep, is that still something you need to be aware of? I know, again, comparing them to the dogs, if you're going to take your dog to the dog park or your dog's going to go to doggy daycare, there are certain vaccines that maybe you should consider that you don't need to consider if they're never going to go out into the world. Is it the same type of thing? Does it matter?
So with the parasites and these internal parasites, they are out there on our pasture. And so even if you've got one sheep or one goat, you may have less problems with them, but that still doesn't mean that the parasites won't be present. We also think about these guys live in the grass, in pasture lands. Some of our wildlife can carry them as well, deer, things like that. Or if you have other grazing animals, they kind of trade internal parasites back and forth. And so it is something for all folks to be aware of if they have sheep or goats, even if they've just got one, it can be a health issue. So it should be something that's just on your radar for sure.
Cynthia, first tell me when and where is this workshop?
It is July 11th at the Warren County Fairgrounds from 9 to 12 in the morning on a Saturday. So it's not during the week. We're not going to keep you till 8 or 9 o'clock at night after work, and we'll have breakfast there for everybody bright and early.
Do people need to register in advance for it?
Yes, there is an online registration, and you can also always mail a check or bring cash into your local extension office for registration.
Does the fee depend on how big your farm is, or is it just a flat fee for everybody?
It's a flat fee of $30 per person, and you will become FAMACHA certified at the end of the workshop. So you'll get a certificate with your name on it or your farm name, just showing that you have participated in the workshop and demonstrated that you know how to look at the FAMACHA score of your sheep or goats. So we're going to have animals there at the workshop, and you can practice pulling down that mucous membrane and comparing that to the scorecard. And then we'll also have somebody there to do fecal egg counts as well. Elizabeth's going to demonstrate how to take a proper fecal sample and look at that under the microscope to see what that fecal egg count is, because that's another really great valuable tool for deworming, when to know to deworm, and allows you to be able to look at that resistance by taking a before fecal egg count and then after you do a dewormer. So there's going to be a lot of great tools there, and it's a great workshop for anybody to come to.
And there's going to be the ability for people to ask questions, for you to be able to interact with them. If something that you say, they're like, oh, wait, I have that problem. I didn't know that was a problem. They're going to be able to talk with you and figure out what potential solutions might be.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to go over all different types of internal and external parasites here in Virginia, and go over different herbal remedies maybe that people have tried and want to see if they've been verified through our specialists. So we're going to go through all of that and then do a little demonstration at the end with sheep and goats so that you get to practice.
So you were telling me during the break that people think they can feed a Christmas tree to their goat and it's going to help them not get these parasites. Where do some of these things come from is what I want to know.
So there have been a lot of people that love to think that herbal remedies work for internal parasite management. We're going to talk all about that during the clinic and go over different herbal remedies and if they have been verified or not for validity purposes, so that people aren't just giving their animals something to try.
Elizabeth, I have a lot of conversations with your counterpart in Frederick County recently, Candace, who is part of the Master Gardeners, Joanne Royalty before her. We used to talk all the time about herbal remedies and all of that sort of thing for getting rid of the stink bugs or the spotted lanternfly or how to keep bugs off your tomatoes. The beauty of extension is that everything that you guys talk about and everything that you teach and share with anyone is based on science. It's not based based on what my great grandmother's grandmother used to tell her to do. And maybe it worked and maybe it didn't, depending on where you lived and what the weather was that day. This is incredibly valuable to have access to actual science information.
Yes, that's probably my favorite thing about what we do, Miss Janet, is that everything that we have is peer-reviewed or science-based. I tell people when Extension first got started, it was because there just wasn't information out there. Now there's information everywhere, and I think Extension is still just as important because it's sometimes hard to sort through what's good information and what's not, because anybody can put anything out there on a blog or on social media. And so, yes, you can always feel good knowing that the information that we give is backed up by research and has been reviewed. And so the recommendations that we give are something that should be safe and effective and should work well for you.
Cynthia, people in Page and Warren County obviously can come to this. That's who you guys are representing in particular today. But that doesn't mean that some of my homesteaders in Frederick County can't come, or Clark County, or any of our other surrounding areas. This is open to anyone in the area that wants to come that have sheep and goats now or think they want to get them in the future. Would this be a good pre-education thing for some people?
Yeah, so anybody is welcome to come from any county. We are an open door and we would love to welcome anybody. And yes, this can be for people who currently have sheep, goats, alpacas, llamas, anything. Or maybe you're looking into getting sheep and goats and you want to be prepared how to manage those internal parasites because unfortunately they are there. So this would be a great tool for even farmers that are looking to get into farming.
I love that you offer that as an option. I have frequently said over the last 6 years of having these dogs that I wish there'd been a class that the SPCA forced me to take before they let me bring these dogs home. If for no other reason than I would have felt more prepared. So this is a really good option for people who might think, "Oh, I'm going to get them because it's easy." Well, maybe do a few of these things first to find out exactly what you're letting yourself in for.
Absolutely.
Where can people go to find out more details about the workshop and do the registration? Do you have it set up on an extension website somewhere?
We have posted it publicly on our Facebook pages. It has been on the Page County Extension Facebook page as well as Warren County, and then being shared vastly across different pages as well. So you can stop into the local extension office here in Page or Warren, and you can pay and register that way, or you can find the QR code or the link on Facebook, or you can call one of us and we can happily provide that for you.
And I'll put links to all the social pages and a link to be able to download the flyer and all of that sort of thing in the show notes at thevalleytodaypodcast.com just to make it a little bit easier for people as well.
Perfect.
But people should not bring their sheep and goats to this workshop. It's to come and learn about sheep and goats and internal parasites. Don't bring them with you thinking you're going to get them tested, right?
That's correct. Yes, we will have the goats there to do the demonstration on, but no, don't bring your sheep and goats there. Just bring yourself and a smiling face and we'll gladly help you.
And then tell me one more time the date and the times and the location.
It is July 11th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Warren County Fairgrounds.
Thank you for taking the time today to educate me on sheep and goats. Eventually, what's going to happen is in another probably 20 years, I'm going to be a farmer, whether I like it or not.
I love it.
And Elizabeth, you and I have had this conversation about the backyard chickens because I really want a backyard chicken coop. I really just don't want the chickens to go with it. I think those chicken coops are so cute. And I could figure out something to do with them in my backyard that does not involve having chickens to live in them. So we still got to figure out a solution for that.
Yes, I'll have to think on that.
I will be back on Monday with a brand new episode of The Valley Today, just a few minutes after noon. So meet me here then.